They told you to follow your conscience, and that's why they rule over you. In this world, the man who hesitates out of guilt becomes prey to those who do not. So ask yourself, is morality your armor or your cage? In the corridors of power, mercy is a luxury and conscience is a liability. The truly ambitious do not ask what is right. They ask what works. Every empire that ever rose was built on decisions that bled morality dry but fed survival. Machiavelli understood the truth most refuse to face. Success does not belong to the virtuous, it belongs to the calculating, those who can silence the trembling voice of guilt within, and replace it with reason, timing, and control. Tonight, we dissect not the heart, but the mind, and discover why your conscience might be the final chain holding you from power. They told you to listen to your conscience, as if it were a sacred compass that always points to truth. But what if that compass was forged not for your survival, but for your obedience? Conscience is not a divine whisper. It is a social leash, a quiet voice planted in your mind to make you hesitate before doing what is necessary. Think about it. From childhood, you were taught to feel guilty for taking more than your share, for thinking selfishly, for desiring power. But who benefits from that conditioning? You, or those who rule above you. The ones who never flinch when they must choose advantage over virtue. History belongs to those who mastered their conscience, not those enslaved by it. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he defied every moral warning of his time. He knew it was treason. He knew it would bring blood. Yet he marched, because hesitation meant death. His conscience would have told him to stop. His instinct told him to conquer. Only one of those voices built an empire. That is the tyranny of conscience, the invisible chain that keeps the ambitious from acting when action is required. You see, conscience disguises itself as moral strength, but in the realm of power it often manifests as fear. Fear of judgment, fear of guilt, fear of appearing cruel. The man who listens too closely to his conscience ends up justifying his own weakness while watching the ruthless reshape the world. Tell me, when an enemy plots against you, do you owe him compassion? When someone manipulates your trust, should you forgive to appear virtuous or strike to ensure survival? Those who cling to moral purity are often devoured by those who understand that survival and morality do not always share the same path. Consider the psychology behind it. The conscience is an internalized form of control, a mental authority that punishes you even when no one else can. It's a prison guard that lives in your head, enforcing rules written by others long before you could question them. Society glorifies this prison. It tells you that guilt makes you human, that mercy makes you noble. But nobility is useless if it leaves you powerless. The powerful, on the other hand, use conscience selectively, as a mask. They display morality when it wins loyalty, but silence it when it obstructs ambition. Their conscience serves them, not the other way around. That's the difference between rulers and followers. Rulers command their conscience. Followers are commanded by it. Look at the Renaissance courts. Alliances formed through smiles and ended in poison. Do you think those who ruled Florence, Venice, or Rome were guided by purity? No, they wore virtue like armor in public and removed it in private. The populace saw saints. Behind the curtains stood strategists. Even in modern times, the same principle rules. Corporations preach ethics while crushing competitors. Politicians speak of justice while negotiating in shadows. Leaders shed their conscience behind closed doors because they know sentimentality loses wars. Yet you still hesitate. You still feel that pang of guilt before asserting yourself, before saying no, before claiming what you've earned. That hesitation is your undoing. Ask yourself, how many opportunities have you lost because you wanted to remain a good person? How many times did your conscience silence your ambition? The truth is harsh. Morality without power is decoration, a crown of flowers worn by those too gentle to seize a throne. And when the strong act, the moral condemn them. Not because the act was evil, but because it reminds them of what they could never do. This is not a call to cruelty. It is a call to control. You must learn when to mute your conscience and when to let it speak. A sword is not evil because it cuts. It is only dangerous in the hands of the untrained. So too is the mind when ruled by guilt instead of judgment. The wise man does not destroy his conscience. He disciplines it. He commands it to serve his ambition, not sabotage it. Power demands clarity, and clarity cannot coexist with moral confusion. Every great leader must one day face a moment where conscience whispers, "Stop." But destiny demands, "Go." That moment decides everything. So the question is not whether you have a conscience, but whether you control it, or it controls you. Because in the next step of this philosophy, you'll learn the truth about virtue. How appearing moral can be more powerful than being moral. And once you understand that, the world will never fool you again. The world rewards the appearance of virtue far more than virtue itself. People do not seek truth. They seek comfort. And nothing comforts them more than believing their leaders are moral. But you, if you wish to rule minds, to influence outcomes, to rise above the masses, you must learn that virtue is a costume, not a commandment. The weak believe morality is absolute. The powerful know it is strategic. Consider this: men judge with their eyes, not with their minds. They see gestures, not intentions. They believe the smile, not the motive. This is why virtue, displayed correctly, can become your greatest weapon, even when your heart is ice. Let us return to Florence. The city adored its pious rulers, its devout speeches, its pretenses of faith. Yet behind every sermon stood a blade. Alliances were sealed with prayers and broken with poison. The mask of virtue kept the people calm, while power changed hands in silence. Virtue, you see, is theater, and every society, every age craves actors who can play the part. Ask yourself, when a politician cries for justice, do they seek fairness or applause? When a corporation vows to protect the planet, do they care for nature or for market trust? These performances are not accidents, they are tactics. Virtue is the currency of trust, and trust is the first step to control. Understand this deeply. People follow what feels righteous, not what is rational. If you appear virtuous, they will forgive your sins. If you appear evil, even your wisdom will be condemned. Therefore, power belongs not to the pure, but to the convincing. A ruler, a leader, a manipulator, all must learn the art of moral disguise. History bows to those who mastered it. Julius Caesar wept before his soldiers, speaking of Rome's glory, and marched them into conquest. Napoleon crowned himself emperor while preaching liberty. Even the church, in its divine authority, used fear and salvation to maintain obedience. Each wore the robe of virtue, but beneath it wielded ambition sharp enough to carve centuries. The psychology of this is simple. People need to believe in something good. It shields them from the discomfort of truth. They crave symbols of purity to justify their submission. Present yourself as that symbol, and you will rule them willingly. But display too much honesty. Reveal the cold mechanics of your intent, and they will turn on you with righteous fury. Do you see the paradox? To be truly effective, you must lie sincerely. You must become so skilled at wearing virtue that even your reflection believes it. The mask, once worn long enough, fuses with the face. This is the danger and the brilliance of moral illusion, because if you master it, you can manipulate without resistance. But if you forget that it is a mask, you will start obeying your own performance. You will believe the lie meant to protect you, and in doing so, become the fool of your own creation. You must remain detached, cold, calculating. Let others drown in their need to be seen as good. You must aim to be effective. The virtue you display should be crafted like a tool, designed for the audience you wish to control. To the moral, show compassion. To the fearful, show justice. To the ambitious, show glory. Always reflect what they need to see, never what you truly are. It's not deceit, it's design. Even in psychology, we see this instinct at work. Humans bond through moral alignment. They trust faster when they perceive shared values. A skilled manipulator uses this bias, mirroring ideals to open doors that honesty never could. And the beauty of it all, once trust is earned, scrutiny dies. Virtue blinds the observer. They stop questioning the hand that wears the halo. That is why true power operates behind the mask. To act openly ruthless is to provoke rebellion. To act merciful while planning ruthlessness is to conquer without blood. So, tell me, which would you rather be, feared for your truth or loved for your illusion? The wise answer is both, to wield fear privately and display virtue publicly. That balance is the highest art of leadership, the art of appearing good while never being bound by it. But remember, every mask cracks eventually. And when it does, what stands beneath determines whether the world bows or burns. In the next lesson, we uncover that core. The mind that feels nothing yet sees everything. Because once you detach emotion from decision, you stop reacting and start ruling. Emotion is the most seductive enemy of reason. It whispers in your ear, begging you to act from impulse, pride, or pity, and then watches as you destroy yourself in the name of feeling. If conscience is the chain that restrains the will, emotion is the poison that blinds it. The man who rules his emotions commands the battlefield. The man ruled by them dies with honor and nothing else. You've seen it before. Leaders who crumble when betrayed, lovers who destroy themselves over rejection, friends who make enemies because they can't bear to be disrespected. All victims of their own feelings. Slaves who mistake reaction for strength. You may believe emotion makes you human, that compassion, anger, love, all define your depth. But in the realm of strategy, emotion clouds perception. It turns clarity into chaos. Consider the generals of history. Hannibal crossed the Alps not with rage, but with precision. His heart was cold, but his vision burned. Meanwhile, his Roman enemies, driven by vengeance, charged into ambushes designed for their fury. The difference between them: one fought for advantage, the other fought for pride. Pride is an expensive weakness. In every power struggle, emotion is the weapon your enemies hope you will use, because they know it makes you predictable. Psychology confirms this truth. Emotional arousal narrows your focus, distorts time, and magnifies risk. Under its spell, you react instead of calculate. You feel instead of see. And when you cannot see, others lead you where they wish. Detach, observe, decide. That is the order of power. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. It means feeling without being controlled, observing without being consumed. The ruler must understand anger, but never speak from it. He must study empathy, but never drown in it. He must appear human without ever being hostage to humanity. The art of power lies not in suppressing emotion completely, but in mastering when to show it and when to silence it. Think of it as a sword. In the hands of the wise, it strikes only when necessary. In the hands of the impulsive, it cuts everything in reach, including its master. There was once a Florentine diplomat who wrote of princes who ruled with passion. They burned bright and fell fast. Their emotions became public property, exploited by advisors, lovers, and rivals alike. The moment others can predict how you'll react, you've already lost control. And control, not kindness, not sincerity, is the true foundation of respect. Ask yourself, when was the last time you made a decision from anger that truly benefited you? When did pity save your reputation? When did love preserve your authority? Emotion is currency, valuable only when you know when to spend it. Use it to inspire, to persuade, to charm, but never to decide. The mind that rules the heart wins wars without drawing a sword. Even in modern psychology, this idea endures. Emotional intelligence is not about being expressive. It is about regulation, the ability to feel deeply while acting rationally, to smile when furious, to nod when insulted, to wait when others rush. Control your internal storm, and you will navigate any chaos with calm precision. Those who master this are rare and feared, because nothing terrifies emotional people more than someone they cannot provoke. Imagine it. Your rival insults you expecting reaction. You smile instead. Their confidence cracks. They grow reckless. Emotion is now their burden, not yours. This is the silent duel of the powerful. The one who stays calm controls the rhythm. It is not lack of empathy that builds empires. It is restraint. Detach yourself from outcomes. Watch people as a strategist studies pieces on a board. Every emotional display, every burst of pride or guilt, it reveals their pattern. Meanwhile, your silence reveals nothing. In that silence, you become unreadable. In unreadability, you become untouchable. Even love, when unmanaged, can be a snare. The heart that attaches blindly surrenders its autonomy. True love, like true power, demands awareness, to give without losing, to care without collapsing. So do not destroy emotion, master it. Let it serve your purpose, not dictate it. Remember, emotion is a servant, not a sovereign. The moment you command it, you ascend beyond ordinary men, because most live as prisoners of their passions, endlessly reacting, endlessly regretting. Clarity is born not from peace, but from discipline, from the ruthless act of choosing reason over reaction, power over impulse. The world will call you cold. They will call you heartless. But in the quiet of your victories, you will know you are merely in control, because the one who feels less often sees more. And in the next lesson, you'll discover how to use that vision to do what others fear most. Betray strategically, without guilt, without hesitation, and without consequence. That is the next step toward mastery. Loyalty is beautiful, until it becomes a chain. Every alliance, every friendship, every oath of trust is a transaction waiting to expire. People speak of loyalty as sacred, but in truth, it is conditional. It lasts only as long as it serves interest. The moment it costs more than it gives, it dies quietly. And those who do not see this truth become the sacrifice of their own faith. Betrayal, then, is not chaos. It is correction, a natural shift in power when loyalty no longer aligns with advantage. You've been taught to despise betrayal, to see it as the ultimate sin. But that lesson was designed to protect the powerful from the awakening of the ambitious. Those who benefit from your obedience want you to fear disobedience. They call it treachery, they call it evil. But what if it's simply evolution? Look through history. Every empire was built on a betrayal. Caesar fell not by the hands of strangers, but by those who once swore allegiance. Brutus's dagger did not merely pierce flesh, it ended an illusion. Caesar's downfall was not the betrayal. It was his blindness to it. In politics, in business, in love, betrayal happens not because people change, but because interests shift. To understand this, you must think like a strategist, not a sentimentalist. Ask yourself, who around you benefits most from your loyalty? And what happens when that benefit fades? The wise do not wait for betrayal, they anticipate it. They plan its timing, control its narrative, and use it as leverage, because the one who betrays with precision wields more power than the one who stays loyal out of fear. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. Psychologically, betrayal is one of the strongest emotional triggers. It shatters the brain's trust mechanism, creating chaos, guilt, and confusion. Most people crumble under it. But the Machiavellian mind studies it, both as a weapon and a warning. You must learn to betray strategically, with intent, not emotion. To betray without calculation is suicide. But to betray at the right time, for the right cause, and in the right manner, that is art. A ruler must understand when an alliance becomes a liability, when a subordinate becomes too ambitious, when loyalty turns into a leash around his own throat. Betrayal, in its truest form, is not the act of destruction. It is the act of preservation. Imagine a king surrounded by allies who secretly envy his throne. To stay loyal to them out of sentiment would be moral. But to remove them quietly before they strike, that is wisdom. Would you rather be accused of betrayal or become the betrayed? You see, the world rarely rewards purity. It rewards those who understand that every relationship is a balance of utility and perception. When one side stops benefiting, the bond begins to rot. The powerful sense that decay early and act before it spreads. Even in modern times, the same principle rules. Corporations cut partners when profit wanes. Nations abandon treaties when advantage shifts. Lovers withdraw when admiration fades. Every betrayal you've ever witnessed was simply the realignment of self-interest. The only difference is who saw it first. In this game, perception is everything. The best betrayal is one that appears inevitable, or even righteous. When you can make others believe your disloyalty was duty, not desire, you not only escape judgment, you gain admiration. Think of political leaders who break promises for the good of the people, or executives who restructure to save the company while removing threats. They betray, but with justification. Their moral disguise shields their ambition. That is the essence of the calculated betrayal. It is not stabbing an ally in the back, it is rearranging the board before the enemy moves. Cold, yes, but necessary. Because loyalty without foresight becomes servitude, and mercy without boundaries becomes suicide. Betrayal, when done right, is not an act of hate, it's an act of power. It redefines alliances, resets hierarchies, and reminds the world who commands the game. But remember this: once you betray, you cannot return to innocence. You step into a new realm, where trust is currency and deception is survival. You will be judged, feared, and watched. Yet beneath that fear lies the respect reserved only for those who dared to choose themselves. So, the next time loyalty demands your obedience, ask, does it serve my future or someone else's? If the answer is not yours, then the decision is already made. Betrayal may cost you a reputation, but blind loyalty will cost you your freedom. The great question is not whether betrayal is moral, but whether you can wield it without losing control of yourself. And that leads us to the next truth: the transformation that comes when innocence dies and control is finally born. Because only when you've learned to betray without remorse can you truly begin to rule. There comes a moment in every person's life when the world stops pretending to be kind. When the illusions of fairness, goodness, and moral reward collapse and reality reveals its teeth. That moment is the death of innocence. And while most mourn it, the powerful celebrate it. Because innocence blinds. It makes you believe effort guarantees success, that honesty earns trust, and that good intentions shield you from cruelty. But the world is not moved by innocence. It is moved by force, influence, and perception. You were taught to play fair in a game that was never fair. Think back to your first betrayal. The first time someone took credit for your work, broke your trust, or smiled while plotting against you. That was not tragedy. That was initiation. You met the world as it is, not as you were told it should be. And from that pain, something vital can be born: control. Control begins when you stop expecting the world to reward virtue and start learning to shape outcomes yourself. It is the moment your vision clears. When you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "How can I use this?" This is the transformation that defines every great mind, from emperors to conquerors to cunning survivors in the modern age. When Alexander faced rebellion among his generals, he didn't respond with emotion. He executed swiftly, decisively. Not from hatred, but necessity. He understood mercy without control breeds chaos, and control, once lost, is rarely regained. The death of innocence grants this understanding. It strips away your naivety and replaces it with perception. You begin to see patterns in people, their ambitions, fears, and weaknesses. You recognize that kindness often hides manipulation, that smiles conceal calculations. And instead of resenting this truth, you begin to wield it. Psychology calls this shift the awakening of strategic awareness. It's when emotional thinking gives way to cognitive control. The prefrontal mind takes command, and instinct bows to intelligence. It's the mental evolution from prey to predator. But be warned, most never reach this stage. They cling to innocence, mistaking it for goodness. They keep forgiving, keep trusting, keep losing, and call it virtue. The wise, however, see morality as a choice, not a reflex. They act good when it serves them, ruthless when it protects them. They learn that control is not about suppressing humanity. It's about mastering it. Ask yourself, how many times have you been manipulated by your own empathy? How often have you allowed guilt to silence your instincts? Control means reclaiming the power others steal through your emotions. It means being able to walk away from chaos while everyone else burns in it. Imagine a chessboard. Innocence plays with hope. Control plays with foresight. Innocence reacts, control anticipates. Once your innocence dies, You stop playing the board and start owning it. Consider the rulers of history who understood this truth. The Medici family rose to power not through purity, but through precision. They funded art to mask ambition, smiled at rivals they planned to replace, and turned generosity into strategy. Their control wasn't born from goodness. It was born from awareness. Awareness that in a world ruled by wolves, the lamb's virtue is irrelevant. Even in modern life, this remains true. The colleague who flatters you might be preparing your downfall. The partner who preaches honesty may be hiding secrets. The friend who warns you about manipulation might be mastering it themselves. When you see these truths clearly, without bitterness, without denial, you become untouchable. This is not cynicism. It's realism sharpened into wisdom. The death of innocence is not darkness, it's illumination. It teaches you to see people not as they appear, but as they function. To read intentions behind words, motives behind smiles. And with that knowledge, you gain control. Not over others, but over yourself. The man who controls himself controls his destiny. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop hoping. You start calculating. You stop needing approval. You start commanding respect. This is when true independence begins. When no betrayal can shock you, no loss can break you, and no flattery can blind you. Because you finally understand the hidden law of power, that the world rewards those who see it clearly and punishes those who see it kindly. So do not fear the death of innocence. Fear remaining naive in a world that thrives on deception. Every betrayal, every disappointment, every wound is a lesson. A cut that carves wisdom into your flesh. You do not lose yourself in this transformation. You refine yourself, and when that process is complete, when the last trace of innocence burns away, what remains is not bitterness. It is control, sharpened and calm. The kind of control that cannot be bribed by emotion or broken by illusion. The kind of control that commands silence and obedience. Because once you have mastered yourself, you no longer chase power. Power begins to chase you, and that leads us to the final truth. How those who master control transform it into silent dominance. The kind of power that conquers not through fear, but through inevitability. Power is never taken. It's drawn to those who understand human nature. To control others without them knowing, you must master perception. Let them believe they act freely, while you quietly design the choices they think are theirs. Influence is not loud. It's silent. It hides behind kindness, reason, and suggestion. By the time they realize they're being led, they will already be where you wanted them to go. This is the essence of unseen control. To command without declaring, to dominate without appearing dominant. Ask yourself, do you want to be understood, respected, or remembered? Those who crave comfort stay honest. Those who crave power learn to conceal. So study the mask, perfect the silence, and when you speak, let every word move the pieces exactly where you intend. Now tell me, what will you do with this knowledge? Comment your thoughts below. Subscribe for more Machiavellian strategies, and share this video, because power, like influence, grows when it spreads.